about those here. The first calling that we see, which is recorded in John's Gospel early on, is the calling to discipleship. A disciple is literally a pupil or a student. Okay, it's simply a true follower of Christ, a disciple or a pupil or a student of Christ. And again, later we'll see when we look at some of this stuff and follow through some chronological order and going through the Gospels, we'll see they're called to discipleship. You find it in John 1 or 2. If I'm not mistaken, it's one of those. It's one of those two chapters. You find it right at the beginning of the Gospel of John. They meet Jesus for the first time. And Jesus says to one of them says, where do you dwell? And he said, come and see. And they go to his house, and they begin now to be his disciple. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The second calling we'll see is their calling to full-time ministry. Now, this doesn't mean they're necessarily immediately going to be preachers or anything of that sort, but they're called now, these original 12 are called to give up their businesses, give up their livelihood, and work for Jesus full-time and prepare for the future call of God upon their lives. That's the second calling, if you will, that we see very distinct in Scripture for these men. The third calling is the calling to apostleship. You may remember in Matthew 10, it says Jesus chose 12 of his disciples whom he called apostles. Now, a disciple and an apostle are not synonymous. An apostle is a ministerial calling. In fact, in the New Testament church, it is the highest ministerial calling. And it's recorded, those ministerial callings are recorded in Ephesians 4. It says that Jesus basically called some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors, and teachers. So there was a time down the road in their full-time service that Jesus said, I am ordaining you now to be apostles, and I am sending you out 2 by 2 to go before me into the places where I will preach and prepare the way. And so now they went out preaching, they went out casting out devils, healing the sick, raising the dead, cleansing lepers, right? They were sent to do those things. And there even was a time later where he sent out 70 men 2 by 2. But those distinct callings later we will look at and see in the apostles, in these original 12 disciples who became apostles in their lives. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I'm not asking, if you've seen that in Scripture, we'll look at that, but I at least want what I'm saying to make sense. Usually what I say makes sense, but sometimes it doesn't.
My old pastor put it as preaching, teaching, and healing. Just if you could remember those 3 words.
They went to do, you mean?
That's exactly
when they
what
were called to be apostles. That the synoptics begin with the Galilean ministry, and therefore they don't show the disciples being called to be disciples. They show them being called to full-time ministry, and then they show them being called to apostleship. Let's go on, because I want to focus and get stuck there right now. And so let's go on to discuss the feast that took place. And let's read here in your notes from the Scriptures, Matthew 9. This is what Matthew records about his calling to forsake his business and go follow Jesus, go work for Jesus. It says, as Jesus, right, once that was over, he walks from there, and he saw a man named Matthew. Matthew's other name was? Levi. He was sitting at the receipt of customs, and Jesus saith unto him, follow me. And he arose and followed him. And it came to pass, as Jesus sat at meat in the house, behold, many publicans and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. So we find that it basically tells Matthew himself, he doesn't say it's himself, but he found a tax collector named Matthew, And Matthew rose up, and he told him to follow, and Matthew rose up and followed him. Very nondescript, very direct to the point. That's what he says. There was a meal, is the other thing he says. It was in a house. There were many publicans and sinners that joined Jesus and the disciples. That's all the rest of what we're told. That's it, right? Matthew doesn't give us a lot of information. Did anybody find that there's more information? I can see the smirks on faces that were asking me about it. That there's more information that Matthew didn't give.
There is, and I think it's in Luke's account, 6:29.
Yeah.
The banquet was
Wasn't
held
it
at
5?
Levi's house, is what it says.
Wasn't it chapter 5? And so what did Luke tell us that Matthew left out?
That it was at his house.
It was at his house. Very good. Anything else?
Left all.
He left all. There's a lot in that. 3 words. He left all.
Good company.
It was a great company. Okay, good. There were a lot of people there. Did you find anything about who footed the bill for this great feast at Matthew's house that Matthew didn't tell us was at his house?
Probably Matthew.
It was probably Matthew.
That's
So
what I
I figured
assumed
it.
as well.
So on to page 8 in your notes. So first of all, regarding following Jesus, Matthew did not tell us specifically, he did not state that he left all. He left that out. If you will, he let somebody else tell it, not necessarily knowing they would, probably not knowing that or anything. So that's one thing. Then regarding the meal, there were basically 3 things that Matthew just didn't say. It must be Matthew just really kind of careless, you think?
Probably not.
Probably not. There's probably a reason.
Well, he was leaving it all. You may as well throw yourself a really good party with
Well,
what
there
you
you
got
go.
and have it all go away.
There you go. I'm reading there in Luke 5:27 on the bottom of page 7. I probably should have read that while you were there. But it says, after these things, Jesus went forth and saw a publican named Levi sitting at the receipt of custom. And he said unto him, follow me. And he left all, rose up and followed him. And Levi made him a great feast in his own house. And there was a great company of publicans and of others that sat down with them. So Levi made him that feast. That means Levi hosted this meal. He supplied the food. He food for it, right? Or you buy the food
Makes me
and
think of the-
you buy the food and I'll prepare it, I mean, right? So he hosted this meal. Second.
The phrase, you can't take it with you, just keeps running through my
Oh, I
head.
love that. You can't take it with you. He was giving up all to take up the call of God in his life, and
Right.
he didn't take it.
Right, he didn't
Right.
he had this, let's use
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
The second thing that Matthew doesn't tell us, that Luke does, it was a large feast with many. You mentioned there were many there. I don't know, you might have just said there were publicans and sinners. Might have said many publicans and sinners. When Luke said it was a great feast, the word great, the Greek word is megas. It was large. It was big. Donald Trump would say it was huge. How does he say that?
I try not to listen.
It was a great, and Luke says there was a great company there. This is a different Greek word. It means much, many. This was a huge ordeal. That's the point. This was big. Matthew did it bigly. Right? And then Matthew never even mentions, and the word company, by the way, so there was a great company, there were much, many, it was a throng, it was a multitude. Now Luke says it was a great company, there was many throngs, many multitudes of people. Matthew just says there were many people there, right? He didn't pretty much caught the things. It was at Matthew's house. Matthew didn't say that. He didn't tell who fitted the bill. He didn't really emphasize how large it was. He didn't really emphasize how large it was. He didn't tell at all that it was at his own house. There's got to be a reason. There's nothing in the Bible that's for no reason. So I say there has to be a reason that Matthew doesn't mention these things. You all are writing, so I'll let you finish writing.
She does.
Everybody's done writing. Look at me there. I know it's hard to look at me, and I'm not wearing a mask right now, and you wish I was. No, but I don't know, you got everything written down. I knew my granddaughter could count on for something like that. Everybody caught up? Why did Matthew leave this stuff out?
The same thing.
You thought of those same things? Anybody else have anything you thought of?